Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win from Dreadscape Gaming, and today we're actually going to be starting off our Diablo 4 starter build guide. So today we're going to be looking at the Sorceress. Now, a couple things that I'm going to let you know ahead of time. These particular builds are going to be starter builds in which it will help you get from level 1 to 50, and most likely will let you clear through the world stone dungeon, the first one that you have to do, keystone dungeon I should say, which is the World of Light. So we're going to look at the build entirely. First and foremost, I'm going to go over the abilities because I feel like that's going to be the most important thing for these guys to look at. This will not factor in Paragon here. Keep in mind that this is a recommendation, a suggestion. It's not the end all to be all, but we're going to be using Ice Shards for this build because it seems to be the most effective way to farm with the Sorceress in Diablo 4. So let's get into it, and I'll explain every choice that we have here on the skill tree in depth, and then I'll give you a small little demonstration. So first off, we're going to go with Frost Bolt. So you throw a bolt of frost at an enemy, dealing 1,832 damage and chilling them for 15%. As you can see with the modifiers, Frostbolt has 15% chance to explode on chilled enemies. Hitting surrounding enemies, chance increased to 100% against frozen enemies. Frostbolt generates 4 mana when hitting chilled or frozen enemies. And last but not least, for the enchantment slot, direct damage from skills applies up to 21% chill. So what you're going to want is you're going to want 5 points of Frostbolt into this particular skill. Some people don't even use this skill, but I think it's important for the mana regeneration. So we're going to put 5 points into Frostbolt, 1 point obviously into Enhanced Frostbolt. So Frostbolt, as you see here, has 15% chance to explode on chilled enemies, like we talked about before. Chances increase by 100% when you have an enemy frozen. And then from there we want Glinting Frostbolt. Frostbolt generates 4 mana when hitting chilled or frozen enemies. So whenever we hit a chilled or frozen enemy with this particular thing, we will get back 4 mana. From there, you are going to want 2 points of Firebolt. Why, if this is a nice build? Well, only because we want the enchantment effect, which is direct damage from skills applies up to an additional 841 burn damage over 8 seconds, and I'll go over why we want this enchantment a little later on. So once you have the 5 points here and have allocated this, you're going to go down here to basically your core skill. Now, for your core skill, there are a lot of tempting options here, but the safest bet is to get Ice Shards. So, you're going to want 5 points into Ice Shards. This is a Frost skill. Mana cost 30. Launch 5 shards that deal 1,205 damage each. Deals 25% increased damage to frozen enemies. We'll go over the modifiers here in a second. So you're going to want Enhanced Ice Shards, which is Ice Shards have a 40% chance to ricochet to another enemy. Ice Shards always ricochet off of frozen enemies. Then from there, you want Greater Ice Shards while you have a barrier active. Cast of Ice Shards treat enemies if they were frozen. With some of the gear we're using, we're going to have barriers active, so do not worry about that. Then from there, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have 1 point into Devastation. Your maximum mana is increased by 3. Then from there, you're going to want 3 points into Element Dominance. Your core skills deal 9% increased damage when cast above 50 mana. Also, you're going to want not Incinerate. You're not going to want that. That's from gear that I have. So you're going to go further down here to your defensive skills. This is very important. You're going to need this. I know it's a fire skill, but it's very important for this build. You're going to want 1 point into Flame Shield. So basically, has a cooldown of 20 seconds. Engulf yourself into flames for 2 seconds. Burning surrounding enemies for 1,308 damage per second. And then from there, for the modifiers, Flame Shield grants 25% movement speed while active. And then from there, you're going to want Mystical Flame Shield. You gain 25% mana cost reduction while Flame Shield is active. So when you activate Flame Shield, you're going to spend less mana, which is very important because you're going to burn through mana here. Now, you do want to put 1 point into Teleport. I don't personally use it on my build because you could put it in the enchantment slot, but I don't personally feel like it works. Some people do put it in their enchantment slot instead of what I'm going to be using. But definitely put 1 point into Teleport, cooldown 11 seconds, transform into Lightning, becoming unstoppable, and surging to target location, dealing 817 damage around you, basically. So you could put 1 point into enhanced teleport. Teleport's cooldown is decreased by 0.5 of a second per enemy hit, up to 3 seconds. Then from there, shimmering teleport. After teleporting, you gain 30% damage reduction for 3 seconds. I don't personally use it, but a lot of people like to use it because of Unstoppable. I don't really feel you're going to need it right now. That's why I have Ice Shards. If not, you wouldn't really, or not, excuse me, Ice Shards, but Frostbolt. If not, you take off Frostbolt and you would put it in that slot. But to each their own, I just didn't feel like it was worth it too much. We're going to want 3 points into Glass Cannon. You deal 18% increased damage, but take 9% more damage. We're going to want 1 point into Elemental Attunement. Lucky Hit. Critical strikes have up to 5% chance to reset the cooldown of one of your defensive skills. Can only happen once every 10 seconds. So it could affect the cooldown of this, or it could affect the cooldown of this, or the next skill that I will be talking about, which we are using, which is Ice Armor. You want 1 point into this. So cooldown of 20 seconds. A barrier of ice forms around you for 6 seconds, absorbing 30% of your base life, 459 in damage. While Ice Armor is active, 5% of your damage dealt is added to its barrier. From there, we want 1 point into Enhanced Ice Armor. While Ice Armor is active, your mana regeneration is increased by 25%. Then from there, we're going to be using Shimmering Ice Armor. Enemies that hit you while Ice Armor is active have 15% chance to become frozen for 3.4 seconds. Then from there, we're also going to want, in the beginning, 1 point into Frost Nova. So this is a charge cooldown, 32.88 seconds. Unleash a torrent of frost, freezing enemies around you for 3.4 seconds. This is very important because this secures frozen targets, which then allows Ice Shards to really pop off. We also want 1 point into Enhanced Frost Nova. Killing enemies frozen by Frost Nova reduces its cooldown by 1 second, up to 4 seconds per cast. Then from there, you want 1 point into Mystical Frost Nova. Frost Nova makes enemies vulnerable for 4 seconds, increases to 6 seconds against bosses. So, with this build, a lot of the time you want to proc a Frost Nova to get all your enemies vulnerable, and then you're going to go spamming Ice Shards, and then kind of we'll show you a little bit later as to how you get back your mana. Alright, going further down here into the Conjuration skills, we're going to have 1 point into Align the Elements. You gain 1% damage reduction against elites for each second you haven't taken damage from one, up to 40%. You don't really want to max any of this stuff here out. Some people do, not just yet. Okay, then from there, we're not going to be using Ice Blades. That's one of the things that I have on the gear. We're going to move down to our Mastery skills. As you can see, I do not use any of these Mastery skills because they do not help or benefit our build whatsoever. Not even the Icy build, Snap Freeze. So we're going to go further down here to our ultimates. We're going to pick, obviously, since we're using Ice, Deep Freeze. Cooldown is 60 seconds. Encase yourself in ice, become immune for 4 seconds, continually dealing 861 damage and chilling enemies for 14%. When Deep Freeze expires, it deals an additional 3,444 damage. Casting Deep Freeze again ends the effect early. Okay, so we also want 1 point into Prime Deep Freeze. When Deep Freeze ends, gain 10% of your base life, 153, as a barrier for 6 seconds for each enemy you froze while it was active. 1 point into Supreme Deep Freeze. When Deep Freeze ends, your non-ultimate cooldowns are reduced by 50%, which is very, very handy because we need cooldowns to kind of reset super fast with this build. Then from there, we want 3 points into Permafrost. Frost skills deal 15% increased damage to elites. 3 points into Hoarfrost, which is you deal 9% increased damage to chilled enemies and 18% increased damage to frozen enemies. Then from there, you want 3 points into Frigid Breeze. Lucky Hit, cold damage against vulnerable enemies has up to 20% chance to generate 15% mana, so that's a way we'll get mana regeneration here. 3 points into Icy Touch, you deal 12% increased cold damage to vulnerable enemies. So we're going to be abusing, for this build, a lot vulnerable, if you haven't figured that one out. Okay, now this is very important. It's not going to make a whole bunch of sense in the beginning, but because we are using an enchantment slot with the Firebolt, this is why we have this on our particular skill tree. We want 3 points into Fiery Surge. Killing a burning enemy increases your mana regeneration by 30% for 3 seconds. This is very, very, very important because it gives us an additional way to regenerate mana, and in Diablo 4, a lot of the time you're on mana burn, energy burn, fury burn. A lot of your resources get burned really, very quickly, so this is a way to mitigate some of those gameplay issues. Alright, then from there, we're not going to pick any of these other skills. You just want the free points into Fiery Surge, as you saw there. Then down here for our ultimates, there's only really one that we can pick for the ice build. That is going to be Avalanche. Your frost skills have up to 10% chance to make your next cast of Ice Shards, Frozen Orb, or Blizzard consume no mana and deal 40% increased damage. Chance is doubled against vulnerable enemies. So as you can see with the skill tree, we've kind of done something so that we can get mana regeneration through passive skills, as well as constantly get enemies vulnerable so we can take advantage of some of our passives. Now, for the Paragon, do not worry about this because this is a starter build, so this is basically level 1 through 50 that I'm going over. In the future, I'll talk about Paragon some more, but just for the sake of argument, if you do start going into your Paragon board, go for the yellows because you're going to want Elemental Balance, you're going to want Erudite, you're going to want to then prioritize stuff such as non-physical damage, not strength so much, not willpower, but intelligence. Anywhere that you can get intelligence here to get increased damage, definitely do that. Dexterity is not too important, but you really want intelligence. And as this expands further, there's a lot more you can do, but we're not there yet. We're talking mostly about level 1 through 50, and then getting you into a good position so that you could do 60 through 70, take yourself into tier 4, and then you really worry about the Paragon board there. So heed my advice in that retrospect. Now, as for the character, a lot of the armor that you're going to have in the beginning, you're constantly going to be swapping out, but there are certain things that you should try to focus on getting in terms of aspects right off the bat. Now, first and foremost, let me move down here. What you're going to want to do is get the imprinted aspect for this, which is Ice Shards Pierce 7 times, dealing 13% increased damage per subsequent enemy hit. Now, you might be asking, what exactly is that? So let's go over to the collections here in a second. My apologies. The Codex of Power. We're going to use my class only. That way I can show you what you're used to imprint here. So what you want is Aspect of Piercing Cold for that weapon. Ice Shards pierce 3 times, dealing 25% less damage per subsequent enemy hit. That way you're able to do that. So that's what you're going for here in the imprint. Then from there, on your helm, I would recommend, if you can, try to get one that has Frost Nova gains an additional charge, but the cooldown per charge is increased by 37%. Remember, anytime you pop a Frost Nova, you are going to force your enemies to become not only frozen, but vulnerable, so you can abuse Ice Shards. So definitely try to get on one of your uniques this particular ability. Then from there, on your chest plate, you can put the imprinted ability, which is damaging an elite enemy, grants you a barrier absorbing up to 909 damage for 10 seconds. This effect can only happen every once 30 seconds. Again, probably going to be like, Dread, what is that aspect? So I'm going to tell you, because I feel like you need these important things when you are going over things. So let us go over here. Where is it? It should be down here. Yeah. So it is Aspect of the Protector that you're going to imprint on that piece of gear. Damaging an elite enemy grants you, again, a barrier absorbing up to 1,437 damage for 10 seconds. This effect can only happen once every 30 seconds. So that is what you're imprinting on your breastplate. Now, for your gloves, I recommend getting this one here, which is the Avalanche Key passive now applies to 1 additional cast. So just to buff your Avalanche. Very important. It's an ultimate skill. Now, the rest of the stuff that I got on here is what I got in World Tier 3 in terms of my pants and my boots. So don't really stress it. You're not going to have that access to you in World Tier 2. But these do drop in World Tier 3, so it's something to look forward to in the future. If you can, when you do get to World Tier 3, definitely make sure you snag these pants. Heart Bryce. While injured, your potion also restores 30% resource. But most importantly, it's for the skill we're using it. Enemies that die while frozen have a 15% chance to unleash a Frost Nova. Another Frost Nova means more opportunities to cast Vulnerable and then just bombard them with Ice Shards. So keep that in mind. You can't get these pants again in World Tier 2. You have to get them in World Tier 3 to drop. So you cannot get that right away. When you do get it, max it out on World Tier 3. Then from there, my boots are Isuru's Parallel. Again, you're not going to have access to this until you get to World Tier 3. But if you're on there, then go ahead and follow this. Your critical strike chance is increased by 16% of your movement speed bonus. So what you want to do is, anywhere you could get movement speed bonus on here, definitely try to. Other things I'm going to talk about here. I have Chain of the Frozen Tundra for my necklace. This says Deep Freeze is active. Exploding ice spikes form in the area, dealing 571 cold damage. Your ice spikes have a 50% increased explosion radius, so this just gives you more damage out of your ultimate skill. Then from there, I do have on my ring, Lover's Embrace. This drops for you by killing Lilith in the campaign, so keep that in mind. If a core skill hits 5 or more enemies, 40% of the resource cost is refunded. So you are definitely going to want to do that. And then from there, this is very important for the ring because we're using a lot of cooldown effects, so we want to be able to get our mana back as quick as possible. You're going to want to use Prodigy's Loop. This basically says using a cooldown restores 15 mana. Sorcerer only. You're going to be probably asking again, Dread, what aspect is that? Well, my friends, I like to go into great detail as to what it is, so let us find it here. I believe it's here. Prodigy's aspect. This is the one that you want to imprint. Using a cooldown restores 15 mana. You get that at the Witchwater and Haswell dungeon. So, just so you know, you basically can see where you get these things from. So, you know, I'll just go over it really quickly because it is important. You do want to Edge Master, so get that at Old Stones and Scotland. You are going to want to go to the Lost Archives to get the Protector. You are going to want to go to Dead Man's Dredge and Fractured Peaks to get this particular aspect. And then Prodigy's aspect, like I said, Witchwater. So that pretty much is the build. Other things that you should really prioritize on this is anywhere that you can get on your gear intelligence buff, definitely get it. Anywhere you could get maximum life increase, definitely get it. Anywhere also that you can get a buff to Frost Nova, definitely get it. Anywhere where you can get cooldown reduction, anywhere you can get 10, you know, certain amount of damage to frozen enemies, injured enemies, increase the freeze duration, definitely try to get rolls on that. I know it's going to be very difficult because of how RNG this game is. Anywhere that you could get movement speed increase, definitely make sure that you do that. Anywhere that you can get damage to slowed enemies, frozen enemies, anywhere where you can get damage done to vulnerable enemies, or you can increase it on a weapon. If you could get it on a roll, definitely these are things that are going to help you out long term. But obviously you're at the mercy of RNG, so you basically get the gear that you can, work with it, and then eventually later on in the game you can actually change certain affixes. But that's very costly to do. So most of the time you're probably going to be swapping out gear a lot, and you're just getting to endgame, which is World Tier 4. So I'm going to show you a quick demonstration of how this build works. I am on World Tier 3, just so you know ahead of time. We'll go over here and we'll do like a Grim Favor, just so we can see here. And I'm going to show you really quickly exactly what your damage rotations are going to look like. There's two things that you're really going to be aiming for here. The first thing, obviously, is you're going to be bombarding people with Ice Shards, but you have to also Frost Nova. But I'm going to show you how it works in process here, because I like to go completely in depth with this type of information. As always, you know, later on, when you get to World Tier 4, you have better gear, and you have better ways to get back your mana, in particular, mana regeneration. You can then kind of respec. It's going to cost a lot of gold, but you can do things to kind of put yourself in a better position. Okay, so I'm looking for a big, beefy elite pack. Hopefully the servers will not be too wonky. We're not going to fight the bears because that's not enough of what we should be doing. Alright. This is a good pack to take. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go Ice Shards, Frost Nova, freeze them, go for Ice Shards. We're going to use our ultimate. This is going to give us a barrier. As you can see, we're constantly regenerating our mana. Then you can just go Ice Shards again. You're going to cast an Ice Shield, cast your Flame Wall. Everything is good to go, and you pretty much pop enemies like that. So I'm going to show you this again, because I am going to go through the whole thing here. just so you can see again the damage rotations that I use. Let's use this back over here. So we're going to go Frost Nova. Those enemies are frozen, and all the Ice Shards ricochet there. You're going to see you're low on resources there. So you're going to cast your Firewall, your Ice Shield. This is going to allow you to pretty much kill those things, and you're going to get back your mana. By then, you're going to get your cooldown again. Sorry that I lagged there a little bit. Frost Nova, rinse, repeat. If we want to, we could even go in here, and I'll show you this. Again, a quick second. And my apologies, because sometimes the servers are a little wonky at this time of day for where I am in the world. But again, I'm going to go over here. This is a kind of a good thing. A lot of enemies here. Let's wait. We're going to use our first skill here, which is our ultimate. This is going to freeze all the enemies. You're going to see all the vulnerables getting propped off there. Good. Let's go Frozen Shield again. Okay, good. Let's get a Frost Nova out. And pretty much you profit. And as you can see, your mana regeneration goes back pretty quickly with that. And that's basically what you're going to do. So, again, for those of you who don't know, you're going to fire off some Ice Shards. Let me wait till we get the cooldown here for a second on Frost Nova, so I'll show you the damage rotations. So you go Flame Shield for the vulnerable, Ice Shards, Frost Nova, Shield, Frost Nova again. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So again, Ice Shards,
I need more time.
Flame Shield, Frost Nova, Ice Shards, Ice Shield, and then pretty much rinse, lava, repeat, and you'll be pretty much good to go. As you can see, we'll do it one last time against some live enemies, just so that you can get a good feel again for what you're doing. Pretty much Ice Shards is where all your damage is coming from. So again, what we're going to do here, Frozen, see how they all pop there? That was very, very easy for us. Okay, so let's go. Flame Shield. Let's go Ice Shield. I'll hit the ultimate there because we needed to get some mitigation. Another thing that I need to talk about, because I did forget to actually cover that, my apologies here, is where we're using it in our enchantment bar. Two things. You're going to be using Ice Shards Enhancement. Ice Shards have a 40% chance to ricochet to another enemy. Ice Shards always ricochet off of frozen enemies. And then from there, you want Firebolt Enchantment. This says direct damage from skills applies up to an additional 841 burning damage over 8 seconds. So these are your two enchantments you must use for this build. Sorry that I forgot about that. And one last time, before I go, let's just show you again the full cooldown. Gotta find the actual pack that doesn't survive one. Frost Nova, Ice Shards, Flame Shield, Frost Nova, Ice Shards. You saw how all of them were vulnerable. And usually, because of all the skills and passes that we have, we're gonna get back a full bar of mana. And that's pretty much all there is to the starter Sorceress build. Now, keep in mind, Diablo IV is a very grindy game, so it is going to take you a while to hit level 50. They did do some experience point buffs. Usually, you have to do a lot of Grim Favors, do a lot of dungeons. Then when you get to World Tier 3, Nightmare Dungeons, I've seen an experience point buff. I don't think it's enough, really, to push the game over where you're going to be able to super level a character to level 100 in a week, unless you're no life in this game. Most normal players, obviously, probably going to be somewhere between 2 to 3 level ups per maybe a 5-6 hour play session. But I have to do the math, actually, in regards to that. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for today's Diablo 4 video. I hope all that information was very good for you. And as always, a like on this video is greatly appreciated, as it helps the channel grow. And I will see you for the next one. Until next time, guys.